Warning: the following video will contain spoilers for all previous books, as well as the first 2 seasons of the show on Amazon Prime. It was inevitable. The Dragon Reborn, the 3rd book in the Wheel of Time series, ironically has very little of its title character, possibly the least page time for him compared to any other book in the series. Instead, this book is mainly about Perrin, Matt, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine as they go off on their own adventures, and how they are affected by Rand's actions. We start with Perrin, Moiraine, Rand, and a few of those loyal to the dragon. Rand wants to help an army of Dragonsworn fighting a war, but Moiraine has advised against it, which frustrates him. Then their camp gets attacked by Trollocs, and Perrin is able to call a pack of wolves to help defend the camp. But as soon as it's over, Rand, suddenly so frustrated with the lack of control he has, jumps ship and walks away. Moiraine organizes a search party for him, including Perrin and Loial. Meanwhile, the Aes Sedai heal Matt from that stupid dagger, and Siuan Sanche, the current Amyrlin Seat and head of the Aes Sedai, pulls Nynaeve and Egwene aside for a special mission. All the while, we occasionally catch a few glimpses of the dragon as he approaches something important. Starting with Perrin, Wolfboy is now plagued with the existential question of what exactly he is, how human he is versus how wolf he is. In the first book, he met a fully fledged wolf brother whose 2 sides were in perfect harmony, who mentors him in his new abilities. In this book, on the other hand, he meets someone like him whose wolf side has completely taken over. This freaks him out, showing him what he could become if he loses control. Despite this, he still uses his powers, both those he has in the waking world and those he has in the dream world. But this is the book that also introduces something else important to his character arc, or rather, someone. A girl named Faile, who happens to be a hunter for the Horn of Valir. She ends up tagging along with the group because she thinks it will lead her to the Horn, much to Perrin's chagrin, though Moiraine decides to let it slide despite how much the newcomer challenges every decision the group makes. But as with most things that force their way into his life, Perrin just learns to deal with it. Switching to the second of our main perspectives for this book, we started getting more of the girls in the last book, but this is the book where they start to come into their own and go off on their own adventures. Though currently they are doing so as a group of 3 with Nynaeve as the leader, as she is the oldest of them and the most powerful channeler. Since Liandrin turned out to be Black Aja and tried to turn the now trio over to the Seanchan in the last book, Siuan Sanche, the current Amyrlin Seat, sees it as confirmation that they are not Black Aja and therefore potentially useful. So she sends them hunting after the Black Aja sisters that left the tower recently, a journey that takes them across the country, fighting Trollocs along the way, amongst other things. Nynaeve is growing more cooperative at this point in the series, but still approaches everything with the same frustration and anger, particularly when it impedes her from reaching her goal in any way. Egwene has shown some subtle changes since her ordeal in the last book. She's less naive, but still very young and inexperienced. Elaine, I don't have too much to say about at this point in the series. She's a lot like Egwene in terms of experience and naivete, and it's going to be a bit longer before she starts to grow into her true self. Yeah, something you'll notice is that the character arcs in this series are slow, sometimes extremely so. The series depends a lot on the reader staying invested through other means as its characters slowly progress, so later on, the reader will be invested in them in their arcs. As such, we get characters who stay rather static or uninteresting or even unpleasant to read about up until a certain book in the series. Case in point, Matt. Oh, blood and bloody ashes, Matt. When the Aes Sedai finally separate him from that stupid dagger, he at last claims his own agency, and boy does he use it. Matt was always a rascal who does what he wants, and with the increasingly common use of multiple perspectives at this point in the series, he starts to come into his own, though his finest moments are still yet to come. However, this book starts to give us an idea of who Matt is going to be as a ta'veren and a part of the pattern. You see, ta'veren, that is, people in the Wheel of Time world who are born to do certain things to keep the pattern of fate on track, have the ability to bend fate with their very presence. This can manifest in a few odd occurrences, but Matt discovers an aspect of it that he quite likes. He starts winning at gambling, like, a lot. As in, he goes into a bunch of taverns in Tar Valon, and he wins enough cash to be one of the richest people in the city. In addition, we start to get an idea of how intelligent and capable Matt really is as he's presented with challenges in this book that he has to overcome on his own. And he does so more intelligently than even Perrin and Rand. But most importantly, we start to see what keeps roping him back into the plot every time he tries to leave. When he finds out that some of his friends are in danger, he doesn't hesitate. Or rather, he can't help himself from helping. No matter the trouble that causes him, or how frustrated he becomes getting dragged back into the fate of the world again and again. In addition to the fleshing out of more of the cast, we also see an increase in the scale of the story and the world. We get a proper introduction to the Aiel, the fierce warrior society that lives in a massive desert, and they previously went to war with the Westlands. There's also more politics in this book as we get a closer look at some of the other nations and their history with the rest of the world. And as such, Jordan goes crazy with the details, which means there's a lot of them. Like, a lot. But thankfully, he also puts quite a bit of effort into making sure that everything connects together in logical fashion, thus creating a world that feels massive in scale and extremely well crafted on every level. And yet, the best is still yet to come. But we'll get to that next time. Now, everything does come together when we get to the climax. Much like the last book, we see multiple plot lines converge on the same conflict. However, this time we're looking at a lot more character perspectives and interlocking parts of the conflict. And Robert Jordan continues the trend of having an ending where everything happens, even as the number of perspectives increases. And while not as epic as the end of The Great Hunt, it does manage to feel more personal and important than the climax of The Eye of the World. It is a bit longer, but is no less engaging. Now for the ranking. Despite what all the positives I had to say in this video so far might imply, I'm not as high on this book as I am on the first two. I still like it, and I appreciate all that it was able to do for the series as a whole, but I found many stretches of it to be meandering and not as interesting. So The Dragon Reborn earns a B tier from me. Definitely worthwhile, but not the best experience individually. So if you've read the book, what did you think? Did you agree or disagree with any of my points? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. I am Kieran Mythos, signing off.